Hello and welcome to the Coaches Series on SSN 24/7. Today we have Michigan State men's soccer head coach Damon Rensing. Coach, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. Now you've been the head coach at Michigan State since 2009, compiling a record of 57, 39, and 21. You've led the Spartans to 5 NCAA tournament appearances, 2 Elite Eights, and a Big Ten title in the tournament in 2012. Before then, you served as assistant coach for 10 seasons, and before that, you had a pretty good 4-year career right here at Michigan State for the soccer team from 1993 to 1996. You spent a long time at Michigan State. So, Coach, let's start with your journey to Michigan State. What brought you to MSU as a player in the mid-90s?
Well, I have kind of a unique background and connection to Michigan State. I grew up in St. Louis. The former head coach and legend at Michigan State, Joe Baum, also is from St. Louis. My parents knew each other. Joe used to come down even when I was at a very young age over the holidays. He watched me play in youth tournaments when I was 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. In fact, my father played at St. Louis University, which was a power back then, and they played against Michigan State in the national championship game, I believe, in 1967. So they were co-champions back then. So I knew about Michigan State. I knew about Coach Baum a little bit. And then when I came up to visit on a recruiting visit, around St. Louis, there was University of Missouri, University of Illinois, which are kind of Big 10, Big 12 teams at the time, but they didn't have soccer programs. So I never really looked at those type of schools, but I just fell in love with Michigan State's campus, the Big 10 atmosphere, and the big-time sports, not just with soccer, but what the athletic department and university provided.
Now, right after your playing career ended, you took a coaching job right away with the Michigan State women's soccer team. Then you spent some time at UNLV before returning to Michigan State in 1999. What drew you to coaching immediately right after your playing career?
Well, I just had a real deep passion for the game, and right when I got done playing, I played a little bit of semi-professionally out in Boston. Just wasn't quite cut out, and back then there was the Major League Soccer was just getting going. There wasn't a lot of opportunities for players to try to play professionally, and I loved the game of soccer and wanted to stay close to it. So started to do a little bit of helping out on the women's team with current head coach Tom Saxton. His assistant coach at the time, Stacy Hendershot, left and took the head coaching job at UNLV for the inaugural women's program in 1998 and asked me to come out and be her assistant. So that was neat, not just to get into coaching, but to see a program start at its inception and to work with the young ladies there and kind of progress. So that was really neat to kind of be a building blocks for that program.
That is pretty cool. I mentioned before you were assistant coach for 10 years. You've been the head coach since 2009. How much did it help you that you already had 10 seasons as the assistant coach before being handed the keys to the program?
Well, it was huge, I think, and even after year 5 or 6, I kind of thought I was ready to be a head coach, and in reality, when I went through those last 3 or 4 years as an assistant, I realized that at the time, 5, 6 years wasn't enough. I needed a full 10 to understand even more of what was going on, not just at Michigan State, but the Big Ten, what it took to win on a national level, both in recruiting, training sessions, basically just how to run a top-level program.
You'll be heading into your 7th season as the head coach with the upcoming season. What is the key to running a successful program, and then what's one of the more difficult aspects of it?
Well, I think what I really enjoy about running the program, and I think what's a key to being successful is continuity. I think the culture is really important. You've got to have a good chemistry, good leadership. Certainly, you have to have talent, but talent can't win on its own. If you don't have the talent, chances are you won't quite be where you want to be. You've got to have good players to win games. But I see a ton of teams at high levels that are really talented but don't find ways to win and aren't good teams, quote unquote. So to me, it's all about the culture. I feel very fortunate that the culture, since really the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, was established at Michigan State due to Coach Baum. He really tried to have a family atmosphere, a camaraderie. The players looked after each other. The team was always more important than the individual. And that culture, I saw benefits of that. When you see players come back, 10, 15, 20 years and talk about their experiences and how they were looked after, I find that very valuable. I think in this day and age, when there's a lot of instant gratification and people want to come back right away and be successful, you want to win right away, but you don't get to see the benefits of what that's about. And because you can't graduate guys and they just come back 2 years. You need people to go on and be adults and come back and talk about their experiences. So for me to see that with Coach Baum was huge, and so that was very important.
So, but you do have a big alumni base that after they're done playing soccer, they come back and enjoy. What's that mean to you that you get that?
It's great, and being an alumni myself, it's huge. When those guys come back, it tells the players that they're not just playing for the 2014 season or the 2015 season. They're playing for this Spartan soccer family that we talk about, and it's reiterated to them because they're always back, and alumni are back and around and are talking to the players and around the guys. So it's very, very important.
That's pretty special. I'm going to give you a two-part question now. During your time as a player at Michigan State, do you have a favorite game or a good story or just a favorite memory during your playing career?
Yeah, there's a couple that kind of stick out. I think one of the favorite memories probably was in 1995. We hosted the Big Ten tournament at Michigan State, and the weather was atrocious. Surprising in Michigan that there's a little rough weather in middle November. But we were playing Ohio State, and they scored with about 10 minutes left, and then we came back and tied it. It was puddles everywhere, rain, just very sloppy kind of game. But we tied it, and then went into overtime, and they went up. And back then it wasn't sudden death, so they went up 2-1. We came back and tied it, and then won again. Or scored again and won 3-2 in overtime, which propelled us to the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament. Certainly, we went into Wisconsin that year too as well, and they were ranked very high, and we won. And we actually ended up being the last team to score off them. They went on to win the national title, and they didn't give up a goal the entire NCAA tournament. So those are just a couple memories from on the field. I mean, the bus rides, the camaraderie, those types of things were special too.
Now you mentioned the field conditions against Ohio State. As a coach, I'm sure you love perfect field conditions. But as a player, did you like playing through that, like rain puddles, or did you just?
Well, you're just in the moment. You do what you got to do. It's kind of fun, We scored that third goal, and we had all 10 guys diving headfirst into the mud puddles. But we'd all rather play on perfect, pristine weather, but in fields. But yeah.
Now for the second part of the question, do you have a favorite game or memory from your days as a head coach at Michigan State? Is there any one that sticks out to you?
Well, there was a few. There's definitely been actually quite a bit. But I mean, in 2010 we went out to Maryland. We were just starting to kind of evolve as a program. They are one of the best programs in the country. Had about 5,000 at the game, and again we're up 2-0. They ended up scoring 2 goals in the last. They scored 3 goals in the last 10 minutes. We tied it with 50 seconds left, and then won in overtime. So it was just a crazy soccer game to win 4-3 on the road. Certainly this past fall, being down 2-0 in the NCAA Sweet 16 at home in front of a couple thousand fans, and coming back and tying that in the last 10 minutes, and then winning in penalty kicks was huge, and getting us back to our second straight NCAA Elite Eight in quarterfinal.
I definitely remember that game you just talked about from this last year. I was definitely following on Twitter, like, oh, let's go. But who has had the biggest impact in your life, whether they were a coach, a teammate, or a player that played for you in your entire MSU career, someone that had a positive impact or maybe taught you a life lesson?
Through the Michigan State program,
yeah.
Basically? Well, there's only one really person I can turn to at that. I mean, there's certainly a couple, but I mean, Joe Baum, working for him for 10 years. He came on, was my assistant. We flipped roles. He went from being the head coach to being my assistant in 2009 and 2010. Really had an important impact on my coaching career, on my playing career, as he coached me when I played here at Michigan State. And what I've really learned to find out is that when I was young in the coaching field, you really want to learn all the X's and O's. You want to learn every little nuance and possibility, and that is certainly important. But what I found out is I can learn those from a lot of different people. You can watch it on TV. You can go watch training sessions from different coaches. But Joe was an incredible leader and communicator and team motivator, and that is very hard to find people to learn from. So for me to learn from him under 10 years of that on how to lead a program, how to communicate to players, how to motivate them, was special. And so I'd say certainly him. Tom Saxton, who's the current women's coach, also was an alumnus and played at Michigan State. I certainly have leaned on him, had a ton of meetings where we close our doors and go over ideas, and we do a lot of collaboration. We have a really unique relationship with the women's soccer program where we do a lot of things together, our banquets, our golf outings, soccer camps. So he's another one that I've certainly relied on, and he certainly helped me kind of grow as a coach.
Talk about that flip in 2009, 2010, where he became the assistant coach and you became the head coach. Was that a difficult transition at all, or you didn't want to step on anyone's toes, or he didn't want to step on yours?
You know, there's a couple good stories where I think Joe really never had any ego about him. You know, so I came up with a couple ideas that I wanted to kind of implement. And one was, you know, I wanted to switch to a flat back kind of zone 04, and that was different from what Joe did, and that's kind of just a way of defending, and a lot of things were trending that way. And so we got up. I said, you know, I'm going to go watch a clinic and watch a coach do this. And he said, well, if I'm going to help you out, I'm going to do it with you. So we got up at about 5 in the morning and drove to a clinic and watched kind of the nuances of a flat back 4. And I thought, you know what, he's on board with me then, you know. And he was a great resource for me to close the door and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And you know, he was always there, and he could say, yep, you know, I think that's a good idea, or, you know, this might happen if this is the way you choose. But he never told me what to do or not to do. He just presented the options of what he thought might be the outcomes, and to have somebody like that, to me, was invaluable on my staff. I
can imagine that. You've been on campus since 1993, besides a short trip to UNLV. In your opinion, what has changed the most about Michigan State, whether it's the campus or a sports program or just something like that? Have you noticed any differences in East Lansing?
Well, certain buildings, you know, certainly buildings change, and certain things kind of look the same, you know, or look different, you know, the appearances. But to me, what I think has been the neatest thing is that I don't think the people change, but the type of people don't change, and that's what's beautiful about Michigan State. You know, it's really a people's campus. People get along. You have all walks of life. You know, probably elite families to blue collar to poor families, and they all come together and seem to get along and work together. And to me, that's the neatest thing. So there have been changes, but I think the culture and the family is the most important thing, and that's always stayed the same at Michigan State.
I got to ask you, too, where's your go-to place to eat in East Lansing?
In East Lansing, well, probably the Harrison Roadhouse. You know, my parents drove me up here from from St. Louis, Missouri, and they started to come there. My dad used to like to go there after games when I played, and so it's always been a kind of a tradition that we continue to go to now.
Now it's summer, so I know you're probably out on the road recruiting a lot. So when you are recruiting, what traits do you look for in players, whether they're physical or mental traits? To you, what makes the perfect Spartan?
Gotcha. Well, we break it down to 4 things for soccer. You have the physical traits. That's basically, you know, how fast you run, how high you can jump, how quick you are, your endurance. We have the technical traits. How good are you with the ball? We call it the technical, the breakdown. Tactical, which is how players make decisions on the field, how they see the field, and then the psychological. So those are the 4 things that we really look at players. And again, I think you want to find technical players. You want to find tactical players that make good decisions. But really the psychological piece is important for us. Again, the character, guys who are going to be leaders, guys who are going to want to play for others. We really look at that aspect. Guys who are going to go into tough places on the road and be able to keep it together and lead teams through adversity. So that's been a staple for us, and I think that's something that we'll certainly continue to look at.
Sticking to recruiting, you know, on TV I've seen a lot more of college soccer, whether it's on the Big Ten Network or ESPN. How much has that helped expose college soccer to a larger audience?
Well, it's amazing to see, not just in college soccer, and that's definitely, we've gotten some great exposure. The Big Ten Network's been unbelievable. You can have recruits watch you anywhere in the country. So, you know, you can be in California and you get to see Michigan State play. Do you get to see other teams really play? I mean, you can flip on your laptop and go to ESPN3 or whatever, but that's different. And so that's certainly helped us. And I think the overall state of soccer in this country, the growth is exponential. You have, people tuning in. You have over 1 million people tuning in to watch an MLS game, to watch a Champions League game or EPL games. The numbers for the World Cup this last summer were through the roof. I mean, they tore up just about every sport in the country, probably outside of football. So when you see that type of growth, the attendance, in the MLS is we're averaging over 20,000 a game for a Major League Soccer game. I mean, so that's one of the highest attended sports now in the country. So it's great. It's all kind of coming together from the youth level all the way up through college and through the professional ranks.
Sticking to the MLS, do you know off the top of your head how many of your former players you're playing there right now?
We have 2 players that are currently playing. Fatai Alashay, who was drafted 4th overall last year in the MLS Super Draft, plays for the San Jose Earthquakes, has played a lot of minutes, probably in the running for Rookie of the Year. It's early, but he's also been called into our Olympic team, and it's neat to see one of our former players representing our country, wearing that red, white, and blue and playing for the U.S. is pretty neat. Jade Chapman signed with Toronto FC, also at the MLS. He left college a year early. Certainly a good decision for him. We are grateful to have him for 3 years, but he's doing pretty well there. And then we've had a couple guys that are just kind of finishing up their careers in the MLS and might get back in. You never know. But Rashawn McKenzie was out in Portland and has been at a few places and done really well for us as well.
Talk about when a player gets drafted, what kind of pride do you feel that you coach them and now they're going on to the big leagues? I mean, what kind of feeling is that for you as a coach?
Well, first, I think you get to know this young man over 4 years, and you're initially just happy for the kid. You want them to do well. That's been a goal. They come in here, and you want to see them kind of go on and fulfill their goals. And we try to do that with all of our players, whether it's going on to be a dentist, a teacher, a doctor, but certainly we have some guys that really want to be professional soccer players, and they're capable. And when you see someone achieve that like Fatai or Jay, you're really happy for them. I think secondary, then you look at your program and you say, well, you know what, we must be doing something right here. They're coming into our environment, we're training them, we're developing them, and now we're preparing them to go on to not just get drafted, but to play well and do well in the league. And I think that's huge.
If there was one thing that you could change or tweak to college soccer, what would it be? Is there a rule or anything on the field or equipment that you'd like to see changed?
Well, I just think our season is pretty condensed. It's pretty tough on the guys. I mean, we could play 3 games in a week, and that's a lot of soccer. If there's a way that we could extend it, either start earlier or maybe move it, kind of push into the spring or something along those lines, it would be neat. And the only other thing is we play our College Cup and we play our NCAA tournament games in some really tough weather. So you're playing your best games in some pretty cold weather games. And if there's a way that we could find a way to shift that around and let our student athletes play some of their most important games of their lives in some of the best conditions.
The 2014 team made it to the Elite Eight, a very impressive feature. For the 2015 team, I know it's still a ways off, but what can fans expect this upcoming season from them? Who will be some of the standout players for you, and who might be ready to break out?
Gotcha. Yeah, it'll be an interesting year for our guys. I tell our guys every year, and I mean this, we expect to win every game. I'm not naive to think that we're going to be 18-0, but I think we have enough talented players that if we prepare well as coaches during the week of training and they come out and execute a game plan, that we can beat anybody in the country. And we'll certainly have that expectation going into this fall season. We will have certainly some new faces and maybe some guys that aren't quite as proven on the stage, but I think they are capable. Some of the guys that have been around that we will rely on heavily, I think, are our goalkeeper, Zach Bennett. He's back for his senior year. He certainly, and some of the websites have touted him as one of the top 10 goalkeepers in college for predicting for the fall of 2015. We've got Zak Carroll, who will also be a center back and defender who returns for his second year with us. He transferred from Virginia, but was very important. He'll be one of the best center backs in the Big Ten and in the country. And then we've had some good breakout players kind of come into the mix. I think Ken Krolicki has really shown well. He was a freshman last year on the all-freshman team. Jimmy Fiskus is another one who's slotted into center back and done well. And there's certainly some few other guys. Jason Stacy comes back for his senior year. So we have a good group. I think they're hungry to show that they can keep us at a high level and keep us in the top 20 in the country.
Well, Coach Rensing, thanks for joining us on the Coaches Series. It's been a pleasure to have you. We look forward to seeing what's in store for the men's soccer team in 2015. From SSN 24/7, I'd like to thank our producer, Rob Bennett, for helping set up and run the board. And for Spartan Sports Network, I'm Seth Newman. Go Green.
Thanks for having me.